Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to talk about specifically what it means to have your moon in Pisces or your moon in the 12th house. My name is Brandon. I do astrology videos here on YouTube, and this is part of a much larger series that I'm in the final installment of here, where I go through every single planet and every single sign and house. I have a playlist down below where I've gone through every single planet and house prior to Pisces and the 12th house, so you're welcome to check that out. If you have anything, which you more than likely will at this point, I highly doubt you're gonna have every single planet in Pisces, because that's very, very rare. So I'd recommend you check out that playlist down below for some more insight into that. This could be a very, very fun video. This particular placement is very, very unique, very, very interesting in a lot of ways. As I had done the sun video yesterday in Pisces, this is kind of a complementary one to that one, as it's the moon, which we'll get into that. And so with this video here, it's going to be broken down into a couple different portions. So I'm going to be talking about specifically the moon in astrology, what that means. Then I'm going to talk about the moon in Pisces and then the moon in the 12th house. So you're welcome to check out those timestamps down below when I talk about what, so feel free to do that. And then of course, obviously, since you know this is YouTube, please like, comment, share, subscribe. All those things help me out. You know the drill with that. And yeah, and then also, if you're interested in anything with me, all my links are down in the description box as well, for connecting with me, getting readings with me, things like that. I'd love to hear about your guys' stories with this as well. Yeah, I think that's really the biggest thing. I feel like I've hit all the different kind of, introductory things I need to say. If you guys have any other questions, obviously my YouTube channel is ever growing, so I have a lot of different videos here that I am making, and this is part of a very large series that I really am trying to do just to create a foundational kind of framework for a lot of different people. So that's why I'm here. That's why I'm doing this. And yeah, so without further ado, let's just go right into it and let's just talk about what the moon means within astrology. So the moon in astrology. So the moon is a very personal placement for a lot of us. It's a lot of where kind of the second step a lot of us start in when we get into astrology. Most of us will start with the sun sign, where we kind of are all conditioned to understand our sun sign, what that is, and then we kind of go one step further typically, and we go into the moon sign, which is really, really important to understand in so many different ways, because if the sun sign is our external world and our external kind of expression, if you will, the moon is our internal world and our internal expression, right? It's the opposite of that. And they are very complementary, and they're very much kind of utilized as a pair. The sun and the moon are going to have a lot of things to say within one another, to one another, to kind of help us understand our inner world, our inner emotional needs, how we meet those emotional needs, what that has looked like, how our inner emotional kind of reaction kind of state is. And it really depends on what the moon sign is in comparison to the sun sign, as well as what the moon's aspects are, where the moon's placed. Obviously, this video is for moon in Pisces and moon in the 12th house. But it's important to kind of see what else is going on with the moon, whether it's a full moon, whether it's a new moon, whether it's a quarter moon. All those things are going to kind of give some more context. It's a little bit more advanced than what I'm really wanting to put in this like kind of foundational YouTube stuff here. But it is important to look at like what phase the moon is in as well. And then of course, obviously, Cancer rules the moon, so if you are a Cancer prominent person or a Cancer sun, Cancer rising, this moon is going to be really, really prominent for you in so many different ways, because you are so attuned to that lunar cycle in and of itself. And so the moon has so much to do with like how we kind of go through the tides of our life, wherever the moon sits by house. It kind of shows that there's this kind of waxing and waning effect within that specific area of life. And in the 12th house has its own significations, and Pisces has its own significations of what it's going to kind of bring out in the person's life, and what it's going to kind of have happen in waves. And the moon in certain signs are also going to relate to how we relate to the public. The moon has that kind of connection too. It has a lot to do with public opinion of us. And so when we have moon in certain signs, it's going to activate differently how we're publicly responded to, not in the like external way, but more of the internal kind of emotional reactions from other people. So there is a lot of different nuances to astrology in and of itself, and the moon is a really great starting point, especially after you learn more about the sun sign. And so this is one of the big core parts of the big three, being the sun, the moon, and the rising sign. I'm not going to be going into the rising signs here in this series, but it is something that I do want to definitely speak on, because the rising signs are probably one of the most important things out of the big three in a lot of ways. But the moon definitely has its own importance here. And the moon, like I said earlier, does rule Cancer, so it is at home in Cancer. And it's considered to be exalted in the sign of Taurus, and therefore considered to be fallen in the sign opposite that in Scorpio. And then if you were to watch the moon in Capricorn video, you would understand that the moon does not do well in Capricorn because it's opposite the sign that it rules. So that's another thing there to kind of take into account. And it's important to just understand that the moon is really, really personal to us. It's a really, really, emotional space for us to kind of sit with. And so, and this video in specific, the Moon Pisces video, is such an emotional sign. And so there's a lot of emotional reactivity in general with the moon, but in Pisces, it has its own kind of flair to that, which we'll get into that in a second. But I want you to know that, like, obviously astrology, there's so much more layers to this. And it's really about kind of utilizing your chart, utilizing your self-awareness to go into these things and understand more about what it is specifically that you, how you're responding to these things, how you're responding to the signature that you're given, right? The moon in Pisces and the moon in 12th can respond in so many different ways. And you'll see that as we go through the course of this video here. But it's important for those of you that have these placements and that are just lunar in general, that are fallen upon this video, right? It's important for you to understand that there is so much more to astrology than just that moon sign. And it's important for you to explore that, either through the playlist down below if you like the way that I speak, or through your own research. I do know that astrology on the internet has gotten a lot more information overload in a lot of ways, versus when I had first gotten into it many, many years ago. And so I think that there is a lot of overwhelming information out there, and that's not really the best for a lunar individual, let alone a lunar Pisces individual. So, but anywho, enough yapping about that. Let's just go in and talk about specifically what it means when you have your moon in the sign of Pisces. Okay, so we have the beautiful, sensitive, esoteric moon in Pisces. So this moon sign obviously is the last moon sign in the zodiac, in the natural zodiac order. And because of this, there's a lot of emotional kind of residue that was kind of accumulated over the entirety of the zodiac. And the moon in Pisces has a very uniquely sensitive placement, uniquely sensitive signature to it. Because when we put the moon, our most sensitive part of us in a lot of ways, in this overly boundaryless sign that's Pisces, it becomes so emotionally kind of swept up by waves in so many different ways, right? The moon is inherently this kind of like water-based, kind of spongy kind of body, right? It really does connect to our waves and our hormonal systems, and it allows us to understand that everything happens in cycles. But when we have the moon in a fellow water sign, in Cancer, it knows what it's doing in its home sign of Cancer. The other water sign is Scorpio, where the moon does not like to have that intensity. Where it's in Pisces, it still has that watery element to it, where it gets lost in feelings, and it's so connected and inspired by this deep sense of inner knowing, right? When it's a moon in a water sign. But when the moon's in Pisces, it has this quality of getting swept away by every tide and getting caught in all of these, kind of offshoots of feelings and emotions and instincts in a lot of ways. And the moon here really does have a very overly sensitive quality to it, but it's because the beauty of the moon wants us to see that everything is temporary and ups and downs, and there's good days and there's bad days. And much like the moon in Scorpio and the moon in Cancer, all the moon in water, they're gonna have this awareness of that internally, and they're gonna really work on that internal sense of themselves over time, because when the moon, this lunar body, affects the waves of our lives, and you're a watery moon, you're gonna have this kind of like instinct to just go with the water, go where it's flowing, go into that direction, and that can lead you into a whole different direction that you never thought you would even be like, right? The moon in Pisces especially can be swept away by feelings of others, by subtlety in others, subtleties within environments, things that they can't quite verbalize, that they can't quite distinguish is their feeling, is not their feeling. And all the time with moon Pisces, you'll see families that are not capable of having boundaries with this particular individual, because the moon Pisces, it has such a compassionate heart. It really does care for so many people, and it wants to help in so many different ways because it has that compassionate ability. But it also doesn't know necessarily where whoever they're giving compassion to in themselves, they don't know where that line's at. They don't know how to necessarily distinguish their emotions from someone else's. But once they do figure that out, they become the most spiritually and emotionally aware people you could probably have. These are the psychics, these are the intuitives, the ones that have this gift of emotional kind of depth to them, where they become this kind of emotionally like an emotional alchemist in a way. Not in the same way as it is with Scorpio, but in a way where it allows for the emotions to become whatever spirit or that wave wants it to be, right? It's almost like when I think about, and it's so funny because Pisces is such a watery, like there's so much like water imagery with Pisces and the moon as well. And the image that's coming to mind is like, we think about waves that crash up against rock over and over and over again, or streams of water that go in the same direction through, you know, a piece of earth or a piece of ground or whatever it may be, or a foundational building in some way. And the moon in Pisces almost becomes that it becomes used to that process of crashing up against whatever it is that they're crashing up against, right? They're feeling these things, and they're being swept away by this wave, and they're being swept away in this direction, in this stream. But the thing is with moon Pisces, and Pisces placements in general, this is like a Pisces theme thing, they don't know that the reason why they're hitting against that wall, or or they are going down that stream, is because they are impacting and creating such a unique thing, right? There's this quality of Pisces where it doesn't make sense. It's not supposed to make sense. And for those that have Pisces placements, it is very hard to make sense of why this is happening. But I really urge those of you that have specifically this placement to really sit with your feelings and figure out how deep your intuition is, because your intuition is very, very strong with the moon in Pisces. And sit with yourself and figure out what your truth is, figure out what you're feeling, figure out what the energy of the situation is, and see what stream you're being led down, what direction you're being asked to go into without any knowing of why. Trusting that your feelings are right, trusting that your emotions are right. And it's hard because the moon Pisces, if it doesn't, it will at some point get lost in other people's feelings and not see what's reality. That's very true for Pisces placements. It becomes so optimistic and idealistic about whatever it's feeling, that it can be confused, or it can be, there's a lot of rose-colored glasses that is very commonly talked about with Pisces placements. And the moon here is such an internal world, and it's like they have so much compassion from their emotional world, and they're almost like a bleeding heart in a lot of ways. Because Venus exalts here. Venus does really well here for this reason. But the moon here, it wants to connect to the public in a way that is free, that is boundaryless, right? But by doing so, it's connected to everyone's emotions all at once, and that's really, really hard to navigate, right? That's why you'll see people that are so intuitive with this, because Pisces, as I've said in the previous video with the sun in Pisces, Pisces is a collective subconscious. It is where everything is collected, within our dreams, within our feelings, within the subtleties of our energy and the energy of an environment. So the moon Pisces are extremely sensitive individuals, and they are meant to be able to show people that there is power in sensitivity, that there is power in dissolving things, that there is softness when things are dissolved, and that's okay, right? Spiritual boundaries, emotional boundaries are so true and so important for everybody, but especially those that have strong Pisces placements. Is knowing how to have faith, knowing how to trust your emotions, knowing how to trust people's emotions, knowing who feels like safety to you as well is really important. What environments feel like safety, because there is a lot of emotional overwhelm. Moon Pisces can also do very well in media. When I think about media, I'm referring to specifically like TV and film and art in that way, where they're connected to something that is glamorous, that is artistic, that is some sort of medium of art through visual stuff, right? Moon Pisces is very, very artistic as well, because they're connected to something different. There is a lot of stuff with Moon Pisces because they're desiring so much to connect to all that is and all that's beyond us, right? And that becomes so hard to do. And because it's the moon, they're craving it on such an internal, inner world level that it becomes this very difficult thing for the moon to connect to. It's like craving the life before birth, and in some ways craving the life after birth and after death. But it's not wanting to die. It's wanting to just be connected to that, whatever that is, the highest energy you can have. And that's why you'll find with Moon Pisces individuals and Pisces placements in general that they will intuitively connect to something higher that alters their consciousness, whether it's through meditation, whether it's through music, whether it's through some sort of escapism, right? Whether it's through media, recreational drugs, video games, anything that is very not of this world in some way, but is of this world, and allows them to put their emotions in that, right? That's why you can see so many strong artists with the moon in Pisces or strong Pisces signatures, because they're connected to something different. They're connected to an emotional space that all of us can just tap into, and we can experience in very small hints of time. But the moon in Pisces, it's gonna consistently kind of in time go in and out of those spiritual spaces or those spiritually connected moments, and feel as though it's connected to something higher, and it has these spiritual kind of moments, and it can be very, very difficult to discern and to understand what that is as a moon Pisces individual. It's going to be very hard to know what is reality and what's not, and what is truly your feeling and what is something you're just making up. And it's really, really, really about learning to trust your emotions, learning to trust what it is that you're feeling. And to do that with a Pisces individual or Pisces placement, it's all about dissolving into that and letting it get messy and be unclear and get lost in the emotion, get lost in that particular phase of life, if you will. And it's very, very, very hard to exist in that space. It's very difficult to exist in a space of just like non-existence and just taken by the wind and taken by whatever wave happens. And it's very difficult to go through a day, you know, and not get swept into some feeling. And that's why it's really important to see what it is that's going on in the rest of the chart. And if this chart has, you know, some earth to balance it out, or some, you know, supportive aspects to the moon, because this is it's such a beautiful one. It really is. When we think about the moon here, it becomes this vessel for so many things of other people's. So there's a lot with moon Pisces. They can be projected on so much by everybody else, by the public, right? Where people think they're feeling something that they're not. But a lot of the time, moon Pisces, their emotions become a mirror for some other different things in people, and they become a spiritual kind of I guess cloud or fog for people, because Neptune and Pisces are very foggy. And so the moon here, it doesn't know what it's feeling all the time, and it can't really understand that all the time, but it definitely will. It's going to, because the moon eventually stabilizes over time as you learn these things. And in the same vein, though, perceiving someone with the moon in Pisces is very interesting, because you see stuff in them that, and this is true for any Pisces placement, you see stuff in the Pisces placement individual that is a mere reflection of you, of something that you're not looking at, that you're not seeing, that you're not aware of on a very subtle level. And it's very spiritual. It's very much projection. There's so much projection involved in the whole Pisces archetype. But the moon here is really, really about that inner world and knowing how to navigate that, and really about keeping that clean in a lot of ways. And I both mean that in like the actual literal sense of, you know, where you live, where you reside, where you sleep. Your sleep quality is really important as well. And find something that connects you to divinity, whatever that might be for you, whether it's, you know, recreational things or not, whether it's healthy or not is really up to you to decide. Because anything in excess is not healthy. And that's another aspect of the moon in Pisces. It does have a Jupiter quality to this, so there is an aspect of it being too much, too many emotions. So that's why the moon Pisces has a kind of double kind of difficulty, because it's already overwhelmed. Whereas the moon in Sag, it does have a lot of emotions in a lot of ways, but it's very different. It's in a fiery element. It's an element that wants to do something with these emotions. Versus in a watery element, it wants to just sit with them and digest them and ride the waves. But what happens with the moon Pisces is they ride a wave, and that wave leads to another wave, and another wave, and then now they're in the middle of the ocean, and they're lost. And that's what the moon does in general, is it allows us to understand those waves, and then we get lost, and then we come back to ourselves. And that's why it's really important for moon Pisces individuals to know themselves, to know who they are, to know what it is that they really are feeling, and what is their emotion, what is their intuition, what are their ancestors, what are their spiritual guides telling them, right? There's a lot of very, very spiritually connected individuals with moon Pisces. I think this is one of the highest indications of like a psychic, intuitive healer, things like that. Very compassionate, very artistic as well, but also very lost. Because it's almost like with the moon Pisces, it's like, once again, you're placed on this earth, and you're wanting to feel something and connect to something that isn't of this earth, or is just beyond this earth, in a way that is, you know, right before birth or right after death, and that kind of liminal space. And it wants to connect to flow, and it connects to that to something higher, and it knows when it's connected to that. It knows when it's tapped in. It knows when it's feeling unsafe or not safe. And that's why you'll see with Moon Pisces, these are people that are like having, you know, extreme prophetic visions in a lot of ways, because they're connected to the deeper subconscious, the deeper kind of things within society. And it's such a powerful placement. Like, Pisces placements are such a gift to those that have it once they learn to really trust themselves and trust whatever that planet is wanting to have them do, which in this example is their emotions, their emotional reactivity. It's such an internal thing. The moon in Pisces is such an internal process, and it's about really, it's not really detoxing, because that's more of like a more plutonic kind of thing, but it's more of the quality of eroding something or allowing it to slowly starve in some way or slowly dissolve through enough action, right? Like if you slowly, this is something I think about with the moon in Pisces, and I like, there's so much water imagery, there's so much water analogies with Pisces, but when you think about the moon in Pisces, it's almost this quality of, you know, you can, if you put an animal in a already boiling pot of water, they won't go into it. But if you gradually increase the heat, they will die in that way. And it's about kind of, that's like an analogy I think of. It's a little bit more extreme, but it is about the level of awareness that the Pisces moon individuals have about what it is that they're experiencing around them, what it is that they're feeling, what it is that they're sensing, when that heat's getting turned up, when they can sense that subtlety and heat before it's too late, before they're drowned or before they're overwhelmed with that. It's a very, very, very spiritually attuned placement, because it needs to understand those subtleties, because there is so much subtlety and nuance to everything in life and everything in astrology, but in Pisces in particular, there's a lot of very, very subtle, small things that become huge, right? If we think about Pisces, and I'm probably going to say this analogy in almost every Pisces video here, but if we think about water, right? If you take a drop of water and you place it into an ocean or a bathtub, it becomes that ocean or that bathtub immediately. And that's the way that the Pisces placement kind of works. It connects to everything. It connects to everything as soon as it hits that. There's almost no division, right? And it's about consistently diluting whatever environment it's in through its presence. So the image that comes to mind is, you know, like a glass of red wine, for example, right? And if you take that glass of red wine and you continuously pour water into it until it overflows, eventually, over time, if you're continuously pouring your pure water into this this glass of wine or this thing of toxins, essentially, because that's what, I mean, it's fermented, but it's essentially toxins, and you pour enough purity over time into this vessel, right, into this environment, into this person, into this situation, eventually that glass, that container that was holding all of that water and all of that toxicity, slowly becomes pure, because you are bringing your purity to that space. You are bringing, because your water becomes, like, your sense becomes everything immediately as it touches it, because of that lack of boundaries that Pisces has. If you continuously bring that purity into those spaces, eventually those spaces become pure. And it's about that kind of, that's why, like, it's hard to discern between, like, detoxification and, like, you know, eroding something or purifying something. And there's different ways of purification. And I think the Pisces way is very much just increasing that compassion or that purity or that kind of light in a way that is so consistent or becomes consistent as you understand yourself and understand your feelings, understand why you're here, understand what it is that you're experiencing over time, that after you do that for a while, then that space becomes pure, right? And the moon is a light as well. It's not just the sun that's a light, but the moon is also a light that we use to guide us. And there's a lot of beauty in the moon in Pisces. There's so much, and it's about not getting too interwoven with everyone else's emotions and knowing what your emotions are, and what you're bringing to those environments, and when you are getting too overwhelmed, and when you can have your own alone time, when you know who you are, when you know what you're feeling, when you know what your intuition is telling you. Listen to your spiritual gifts, understand them, learn them, explore them. There's so much that you can do. It's limitless for the moon in Pisces, because you can tap into so much of everything and anything that exists, and you have such a creative potential with the moon in Pisces. There's so much intuition that you have that can allow for so much artistry, for so much beauty, for so much healing that you can create. And yes, your family stuff is likely going to be difficult, but it's because you're meant to know what it feels like to, in some way, be the scapegoat, but in other ways be the martyr, be the savior, by willing to be that scapegoat, or by willing to be that pure person. In a lot of ways, it's such a beautiful placement, and it's one of those that I have the pleasure of knowing quite well. I don't have it personally, and it allows me to have more of a compassionate tone for those that I know that have this placement, because they are so attuned to the healing that people need. But the reason why they are that way is because they had to heal themselves, because they had to connect to themselves and their own emotions and their own intuition and their own sensitive nature. And they had to learn how to navigate that. They had to learn how to navigate a world where there's so many energies being thrown at them, consciously or not, and knowing how to navigate that, knowing how to weave so beautifully within their own kind of system. It's very interesting, the image I'm seeing, because once again, water is this kind of like, once again, this like pure glass of water, if you will, and dropping droplets of colored ink or colored water or food dyes into this, and seeing how that kind of beauty can shift that or can taint that as well. And it's about your ability to have your emotions understood and felt, and trust your emotions. That's what's going to allow you to create the art in those spaces, and to create this sense of healing within yourself and then others. It's so beautiful. And I'm so happy that I have been doing this series. And I'm so happy to be able to do this one, because it's so special. It's so special. And I don't know if you've watched any of my other videos, but this is very much a video where I am just tapped in, and I am very channeling and very mystic energy in this sort of video here. And it's a level of intuition that I think those that have moon in Pisces understand. And even for me, tapping into it in these moments, as I have in other moments as well, but in this particular moment recording this video, is very beautiful. It's very special. It's very unique. And it's very healing as well, to feel the way in which, at least for a moment, how moon in Pisces can feel. connected to something higher and inspired by whatever they're feeling to really create more healing in others. It's such a gift, and it's so lost for words, which is so Piscean in nature, like not being able to quite put the words together or not being able to quite grasp it, but knowing that the feeling is there and knowing how to just emanate and bring out beauty and bring out love and just become this vessel of healing for people. It's such a powerful placement. And I hope that you Pisces moon individuals understand that. And yes, I'm sure you've had your times when you've been lost, and it's part of that process is losing yourself so you can regain that. So you could see where this wave and this mysterious journey is taking you. Because the thing about Pisces, it will want you to lose yourself. It will want you to get lost, because in that process, you know who you figure out who you are. You find more of yourself through simply just releasing attachment, releasing, the worry. And there's so much beauty in this placement. And I wish I could really convey it more clearly. And I'm trying my best, because this is such a nebulous, untouchable kind of energy in some ways. And I think that's where the moon in Pisces, they can have such an artistic quality to them, where it's like, look, don't touch in some ways. And just look at the art that I have, look at the energy that I bring, look at the beauty I bring to spaces, look at the light that I bring into rooms, and my ability to, emotionally connect to anyone, and dissolve those emotional boundaries through my art, through who I am, through whatever it is that I do, right? Whatever it is that I'm feeling. There's so much subtlety to energy that the moon Pisces has to understand in their lifetime, and they will. They definitely will, because they'll realize how much at a point in time, they'll have to realize how much they're impacting an environment. Because you can be within an environment and let that environment take control of you and take hold of you and go and you just get swept in the wave, or you can see how much your energy can impact those environments. And that, I think, is where the beauty of a Pisces individual, moon in Pisces in particular, really, really lies, is their ability to know and discern when they feel as though they are being swept away in that energy of the collective subconscious, and when to kind of pull back, and when to utilize their own light, their own emotions, to bring that into an environment. You can impact the environments and the people that are in your life. You are not a victim of your circumstances. You're not a victim of the environments that you're surrounded by. You're not a victim of anything. And when you realize that, yes, you have been victimized, yes, you have struggled, we all have in our own unique ways. Once you realize that, and you realize that you are not just being thrust by these waves and just they're crashing this way, and you just have to kind of let it go and just get hit by this wave, and you go over here and get hit by this wave, and you go over here and just be tossed around like a rag doll. It's about knowing that you have the ability to create that stillness in yourself, so that those big waves that once hit you, that may have like completely set you off, or completely disempowered you, or completely destroyed you, or thrown you off your center, they're just subtle. They're not as heavy hitting as much, because you've done the work, and you know that you're the one in charge of how you react and how you respond to the intense amount of energetic hits and impulses that you're receiving in your day-to-day, in your environments, in your relationships, in everything. It's very like overwhelming to have this placement, but it's about you over time, and you will understand that you don't need to respond to everything. There's a sense of waiting for things to settle, and not getting tossed around, and knowing that you have control over that. You have the ability to do that. You have the ability to sit and allow yourself to see whether you are just absorbing things. And that's another thing, absorbing. There's so much with Pisces. This is such a deep placement, but with the absorption quality of Pisces, you are absorbing so many emotions that you don't know. You're absorbing so many things that you're not aware of, and you're healing in that process because you're just so willing to just absorb it and take it in and receive it. And it's really important to not absorb too much and know what is yours and what is not yours. And that's why you have such a healing ability to be able to bring that in and kind of let it understand the waves of people's emotions, people's subtleties and energetics. And there's so much of a gift, like mental health and spiritual health is such a thing for this placement. And yes, you could find yourself in these spaces of isolation quite often. And this is more Moon 12th than Moon Pisces, but you could find yourself in spaces of spiritual retreats in general. Can be really extreme version of this in some ways, but you could see them in ashrams. You can see them in foreign lands, culturally diverse situations, mental health hospitals in general, things that are secluded, things that are in between worlds. There's so much beauty in the moon in Pisces, and I urge all of you to take a moment to meditate, to be silent, to sit and feel all of what you feel, and allow yourself to just drift into that for a moment, and feel all of what you are connected to, and trust your intuition, trust where you're being guided. It's such a beautiful placement. I wish, like I said, I wish I could speak more on this, and I really want to, because I find it so beautiful. Just sitting in this energy is such a beautiful thing to sit with. The moon in Pisces is such a healing place to be. It's very, very healing. And it's about being able to sit in this and not get too attached to it, but know that it's always there for you, right? Know that the peace that you find in those little moments, however you find them, and hopefully it's in healthy ways, those moments of peace, they're always there. They're always there, and they always come back. And it's about understanding how they come and they go, and they come and they go, and be grateful for all the moments of peace that you've been able to have. Because over time, you're going to get used to that, and then you will become peace. You'll become peaceful. You'll become someone that is able to emotionally just create healing in others, because you know what peace is, because you've had to create that within yourself as you've gone through these waves that the moon does in Pisces. The moon doesn't in every sign, but in Pisces, these waves are way more impactful on you. And it's like you get caught into a wave, and then that wave sends you down this entire river that just feels like it's an entirely different life that you're living, right? So take the time to do the healing, because I promise you're meant to heal people. With this placement, you are very much meant to heal people, but to do that, you have to be able to know what you have to heal within yourself, and enjoy it. Enjoy the process of this, and it's not easy to enjoy when you're in it, but the more moments you get, like I said, of peace and healing, the more it'll get easier over time. It's such a beautiful placement, and I hope that this gave you Moon Pisces individuals some sense of solace and peace and understanding and connection, and validated some of the stuff that you guys go through. This is such a beautiful feeling to sit in. It's such a gift, and I really love being able to do this. And even just sitting in this moment is such a beautiful thing to do. And yeah, and I just really love my job. I love being able to do this. This is, of course, the last moon video I have in this series specifically. So thank you for this if you've watched this. And I hope that this helps you, anyone, everyone, right? The Piscean kind of thing helps all of which it can kind of touch. I hope that this gives you a drop of hope, right, in that water analogy. I hope that the energy I'm bringing to this creates some ripples or some changes on a subtle level, energetically, to everyone that watches them, but in obviously a healing way, in a way in which you feel more healed and more seen, more validated. And so, yeah, I really love this. This is so great. And yeah, and I'm just grateful to do this series, like I said. And just like the moon, like everything waxes and wanes and has its time. I will have to leave this portion and I will go to the next portion in a moment of the moon in the 12th house. But before I do that, I want to say as well, obviously, if you like this video, please like, comment, share, subscribe, all the YouTube things, you know that. And then also, of course, look to the other videos in the playlist if you're interested in anything else within your chart. But then also look to your Jupiter placement as well as your house placement for your moon, because that's going to give you a lot of context further than just this moon Pisces to help you kind of really navigate that. And I think for moon Pisces, the Jupiter placement can help a lot more than it would otherwise, because the moon Pisces has such a kind of quality of being lost in things that Jupiter placement can really assist in a lot of ways. And then, of course, look to the moon's aspects and look at all those things. There's so many different layers to this, right? There's so many different layers to this, and I don't want to overwhelm you in any way, shape, or form. And if you're interested in anything with me, feel free to reach out down below as well. And once again, I hope this video helped you or anyone. That's why I do what I do. I love, love, love being able to provide this, and it gives me so much meaning and purpose. And it's sad to see that this series is coming to a close. But obviously these are here for whomever needs them, and I'm really, really grateful to be able to do this. So yeah, so with that, I will leave you, Moon Pisces, to do whatever it is that you Moon Pisces want to do at this time. Obviously you can meditate, you can sit with this feeling, you can, go in and feel all the things, whatever it is you want to do, right? And I hope this series helps everyone, anyone, and I hope this video helped you. And obviously watch rest videos if you have any interest in that. I'm going to move on to the next portion before I get this portion. It's already gotten ridiculously long for the moon in Pisces, but I'll see you guys in the next part where we talk about the moon specifically in the 12th house. So see you in the next part. Okay, so the moon in the 12th house. So this is a very different energy than the moon in Pisces. It does have some similarities in a lot of ways, but it doesn't have as much of a drowning effect in some ways that the moon in Pisces itself can have, because the moon can be in any sign in the 12th. It can be in, and likely it is, in other signs besides Pisces. And so it's really important to watch your moon sign first before you watch your moon house. So watch that first in the series prior to watching this, because that will help you much more than these little tidbits will be in this portion here, where I'm going to be talking about the moon in each sign kind of in its own way. But the moon in the 12th, it does have some qualities of, once again, being lost, similar to the moon in Pisces, but connected to something different, right? There's very deep, very, very, very deep, and I meant to mention this with the moon in Pisces portion, but very deep connection, very deep karma with the family and with the mother in specific. There's a lot of motherly kind of connection here, because the moon both rules that, and the 12th house definitely has some like really, really deep karmic correlations to it, where there's a lot of kind of dissolving of that mother and that relationship and the karma between yourself and your mother becomes very unique to you, and very healing for both of you in a lot of ways. And there is a sense of spirituality. There's a sense of dissolving the relationship with the mother in some ways. And the family in and of itself, there's a lot of family karma in that way. There's a lot of family, there's a lot of quiet emotions too, a lot of subtle emotions, a lot of really, 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 really important need to emotionally isolate, sit with yourself. Moon Aquarius has this as well, as a Moon Aquarius individual, but Moon in Pisces and Moon in the 12th can have this quality of needing to be alone, to feel its feelings, needing to be by itself in its own energy, in its own space that it's curated, and being able to purify that. Moon in the 12th can also be really prominent in people that are psychics and intuitives, and specifically mediums, because the 12th house connects to mediumship, connects to departed people in ways. So there's a lot of connections there. There's a lot of connections as well with family hospital related things, because the moon rules family, the 12th house rules hospitals. There's a sense of decay in a way. Decay feels very moon 12th house as well. Like the idea of something not really like being there, but just slowly over time, not being as fresh or not being as capable. So there's something in that quality there, very personal things. There's a lot of mental health stuff too here, I think, because the moon is a lot of our mind as well. It's how we relate on an emotional level, but also in some teachings they talk about the moon being very connected to the mind, and not like the logical mind, but in more of the actual like neurobiology in ways. And so the moon in Pisces and moon in the 12th both have a quality of just needing to connect to the sense of loss of their mind in some way, loss of their emotional boundaries, loss of their family, loss of their mental kind of grip in a way. And that's why you'll see moon 12th housers kind of go into hospitals where they're seeing the public be, losing their minds in some way, or losing their life, or kind of being in that in between, that transitionary time, because the moon, the Pisces and 12th house thing it's all about this transitionary. It's probably the most transitionary place in astrology, is between Pisces and Aries, where it's this area of just, and the 12th house in the first, where it's this area that is just not, it is real, but it's not real, right? It's like there's so much that can happen in a hospital. There's so much that can happen in a hospital. There's so much that can happen in jails. There's things that we might never know that happen in jails. There's so much that happen on the spiritual side of things that once again we might never know. And the beauty of Pisces in the 12th house is it allows us to peek into that for a moment. Now the thing with this though is this is the moon. So this becomes obviously your emotions. This becomes you. This becomes your feelings. This becomes your sensitivity to that. So you're able to peep into some stuff that you don't know what it is. And that's why you can get swept away with stuff, similar to moon in Pisces, where you're connected to stuff that you took stuff home with you that you didn't see, right? Both on, a physical level, but more importantly on an emotional, energetic, spiritual level. There's stuff that you don't see, but you can sense with the moon in the 12th. So being in hospitals, things like that, being in spiritual spaces, in general, are going to be very, very much sensitive to you in a lot of the ways, but you're also going to have a phase in your life likely where you're going to be going to hospitals, going to jails, going to asylums, but in some ways it's going to help you, once again, similar to moon in Pisces, understand those subtleties and energies and subtleties of what is yours and what isn't, right? If you go into hospitals and you're a medium, I mean, I am not a medium, I'm not practicing medium, but I have colleagues that are, and they speak about going to hospitals as a medium, and the amount of subtle energies and the amount of spirits that are there that they are aware of. And I think that's true for the moon in the 12th in general. There's a quality of the moon in the 12th that speaks to being sucked into those things and not being aware that you're taking stuff home with you, and not being aware that you go into this environment, you go into this space, and you have a panic attack, or you shut down, or you become really angry, right? There's a sense of really intense subtleties where there's the importance of spiritual hygiene is so fucking crucial. But more importantly, to those that have moon Pisces, moon 12th house, to have a sense of spiritual cleansing that you do, spiritual routine. Water is your friend, and the ability to clean yourself with water and purify yourself, especially in large bodies of oceans, large bodies of water, are really going to help you and connect to all that is. It can be overwhelming in some ways when you connect to that much energy, but it can also be very cleansing, because you allow yourself to just give your energy to the collective and let it all become one. But it's about you realizing what is yours, what is not yours, and what is yours to hold and what is not yours to hold, because water is something that is not graspable in a lot of ways unless we put it in a container, or unless we put it in a vessel, or we alter it in some way. Then it becomes usable, or becomes more formed, but it's not meant to be in general. And so the moon in the 12th, these are both very much energies that are very subtle and very ever-changing. The moon in Pisces has this as well, but the moon in the 12th is very it's like you don't see that you do this. You don't see that you're picking up energies. You can't feel it. You can sense it, but you can't always see it. And there's a sense of just really deep spiritual connection to stuff. And it's about knowing what is yours to hold, what is yours to try and focus in on while it's coming to you, while you're feeling it, while you're sensing it, while you're experiencing it. What is yours, what is not yours, right? What is your emotional kind of reaction to stuff that you don't see? And it's hard. It's so hard when you have 12th house planets, because you don't know what you're responding to. You don't know what you're responding to. You don't know why you're feeling what you're feeling all the time, and that's okay. But it's knowing that you might not know what you're feeling, but you do know how you respond. And if you wait, and if you do the reflection that the moon wants and craves on what you're feeling, on what you're experiencing, and let it come from within you, it's going to really, really assist in a lot of ways, in a lot of healing. And I should have said this in the previous portion, but there's a reason that Jupiter exalts in the moon's sign as well, because it's about that ability to find belief through stillness of your own emotions. And I think that's something that the moon Pisces, moon 12th housers really need to understand, is that the more you can sit with those feelings, the more that you can allow yourself to create that calmness in spaces that aren't that calm, the better you will be at responding emotionally, because the moon is going to respond very differently in very different signs in the 12th, but they're all responding to something subtle, something different, something energetic, something unique to them, something unique to their environment, and all of what they've experienced or what they are experiencing in that time. And there's a lot of like very, 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 very psychic indicators with the 12th house planets. All of them kind of have this psychic kind of quality to them. But the moon is probably one of the most psychic, because it's meant to get lost. It's meant to be not seen, but then seen, because it's the moon. Once again, it's a light. So you are meant to illuminate things in the 12th house. You're meant to illuminate things that people don't want to look at, that people haven't looked at, that you can't even, people don't even realize are there, right? So there's a lot of subtleties with this. So kind of moving on from here. So if we have the moon in certain signs, it's going to play different roles in how it is responding to these subtleties. If the moon is in a Martian sign like Aries or Scorpio, in the 12th, there's so much that could be talked about with this particular house, it really deserves like a lot of depth, in ways that this video is not going to be able to provide, unfortunately. But when it comes to the moon in a Martian sign on the 12th, there's a lot of like really obviously very intense kind of inner battles, emotional battles, private fights with your emotions, with your family. There's very, very, especially if the moon's in Scorpio, there's a lot of really, moon in Scorpio on the 12th is probably one of the more difficult ones for really deep psychological trauma from your family that you've just absorbed and need to then break through and break out of. There's a lot of emotional deconditioning that needs to happen in general with the moon on the 12th. The moon in Scorpio, it's an intense one. It's an intense battle with your own emotions, with your own stuff. This is one I would definitely see being hospitalized, because that's what they need to be able to understand that their emotions. The thing with moon Scorpio, and I would recommend watching the moon Scorpio video if you have that placement, it's about being witnessed for your emotions. And I think when you have such extreme emotions and your emotions are connected to everything and you can't quite discern where it's coming from, it needs to be witnessed in a way that pretty much forces that internal kind of analysis that the moon needs in the 12th. And so with the moon in Aries and the moon in Scorpio, because they're Martian, it almost forces you, or through some conflict, through some disempowerment, through some issue, some argument, to be placed in those situations, whether it actually is a hospital or not, to be able to really, really feel and come to terms with yourself and how those emotions are motivating you, inspiring you or not, and how you're reacting to them. Because the Moon-Mars signature is a lot of this, how you're emotionally responding to things is really, really, really important. And in the 12th, there's a lot of crap, for lack of a better word. There's a lot of crap that you're trying to fight through and you're trying to purify and trying to respond to, and you might be responding to stuff that is not yours to fight. You might be fighting battles that are not yours to fight. In a lot of ways. And that's, I think, true for the Mars in the 12th as well, which we'll get to that tomorrow. But anywho, that's a little tidbit there. But both these, the moon in Aries also does have a quality of really intense individual goals. So it's about, once again, seeing yourself individually, and doing the work on yourself. Doing a lot of, like, with moon Mars, it's really important to like work out and do physical activity there too. More so moon Aries than moon Scorpio, because of moons and fire. Anywho, moon in Venus road signs, so Taurus and Libra. This is going to have a quality, obviously, of wanting to create peace, wanting to create harmony within that 12th house. So there is definitely some interesting relational issues here. Moon in Taurus does actually stabilize this quite well, because the moon exalts here. So this is where you'll see people working in hospitals, working as healers, and really, 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 really doing well, being able to go in those spaces and kind of, as I had said in the previous portion, be a environmental influence in a way that really creates a very different and distinct shift of stability in places that are unstable, that are not clear. And so that's why you'll see a lot of moon 12th housers also go into psychology, therapy, becoming therapists, because they are able to go into those spaces and want to, in ways that are able to create harmony for others. And that's what you'll see probably with moon Taurus and moon Libra. But they both have qualities of getting a little bit too caught up in the emotions of others. But the moon Taurus obviously does a little bit better here because of its exaltation. But it does have a quality of smoothing things over too much, or wanting to create peace too much when the moon is really strong. So it might just create comfort for itself in that 12th house, but not necessarily want to do that for others. So there's a lot of subtleties with this. So yeah. And then moon in Libra, like I said, there's relational stuff more prominent with this one than the moon in Taurus. But there is a quality of really getting sucked into specifically relational kind of dependency and things like that, and not having like clear boundaries in relationships, and knowing how to discern your emotions with someone else's, which once again is why moon Libra in the 12th can be really good for therapists in a lot of ways. And then moon in Gemini and moon in Virgo in the Mercury road signs. So when moon is in Gemini, this one has a lot more of a prominence here because this is your chart ruler. You are a Cancer rising. The moon is in Gemini in the 12th house. So there is a quality with this in particular where you are really bringing your mind to the forefront. You're really bringing your emotions to really try and work through a lot of really deep karma for your family. And for you, like, you're really wanting to dive deep into and put yourself into the conversations, into the minds of your family, into the minds of those around you. Once again, this could be a great one for a therapist as well, because you yourself with the Cancer rising, putting yourself in the 12th, there's a sense of loss of self though too, loss of perspective. Now, the thing that's interesting about the moon in Gemini is it does have a quality of duality to it. So this is where you could see some interesting qualities with this particular one, where you have like you have a very distinct difference between your private life and your personal life. And there's kind of a bleeding over in some ways, because the Cancer rising goes into the 12th, the chart ruler. You go into hiding, you go into solitude, you go into hospitals, you go into, meditation. So that's what you'll see with the moon in Gemini. But there's a mercurial aspect to this. So there's a sense of communicating your feelings, communication of others' feelings, communication of stuff that isn't seen. And this can also be very, very psychic as well, especially because the moon is in a mercurial sign. So your Mercury placement is going to have a lot of importance for this one in particular, because it's like, what are you communicating about that you can't see? How are you communicating that? How well are you communicating that, right? If the moon is in Gemini and Mercury is in a well-placed sign, let's say Mercury is like in a trine with that to Libra or a trine to Aquarius, there's going to be a lot of really, really supportive things kind of happening for this individual, in a lot of ways. Cancer risings with a Gemini moon, some very interesting stuff there, because also Virgo rules your third. There's a lot of different interesting things for the Cancer rising layout. But anywho, it's beside the point. I'm going a little bit too deep into that. Now, anywho, if you're interested in that, if you have that particular placement, I'd love to hear from you. Please put it down below. I'd want to hear about your story. But then the other moon Mercury we have is moon Virgo in the 12th. So this one has obviously a quality of a lot of emotional kind of overwhelm. But this is where you'll see a lot of, I keep saying hospitals because it's like it's so common. It's more common than you think. When you think about the moon in the 12th house, and people are like, oh, you always have, like, everyone has an experience like with the hospital. Moon 12th housers, they have it a little bit more than the average person. They really do. And moon in Virgo here, this is where you actually see people that work in hospitals specifically, that are nurses, that are the ones doing the healing. This is a really great placement. The moon Virgo just has a lot of healing capabilities, because it needs to perfect itself, needs to make sure it's working on itself every day. Spiritual routine, spiritual hygiene is really important for this one. Yeah, there's a lot of spiritual hygiene importance with the moon in general in the 12th, but in Virgo has a lot of stuff there. Interesting health related stuff. Interesting, maybe like unseen health related things, or like mystery illnesses in some way. Anywho, moving on from there, the moon in the sun sign, or the moon in the moon sign. So the moon in Leo in the 12th is going to have obviously a bright quality to it. It's going to illuminate a lot of different things about their childhood. There's a lot of childhood healing specifically for this one, because the moon in Leo really wants to connect to its own identity, its own self, its own pride, and be proud of what it's dealing with, but it needs to kind of reclaim that through losing that. So there can be a lot of really positive aspects of the moon Leo in the 12th, because they're able to bring in a lot of artistic qualities and artistic expression that the Leo in the 12th house kind of help with. There's a lot of support for creativity in the 12th. When you connect it with Leo, there's a lot of really, really positive things about creating art and helping children in a lot of ways, helping advocate for children, helping unseen children. And it starts with maybe helping unseen children that are actually there, versus, and then maybe helping unseen children that have passed, and then maybe helping your own unseen child as well. There's a sense of your inner child that needs to be really worked through with the moon in Leo in the 12th. And you could do that through art in a lot of ways, obviously, through anything creative and fun and enjoyment. There's some interesting stuff there. The 12th house is such a deep thing. It's so deep. It's so deep. And yes, this week is going to be a doozy for sure. But anywho, moon in its own sign in the 12th. So much like the moon in Taurus in the 12th, it does protect this area of life. So it does protect your mental health in some ways. It can't get overwhelming, obviously, because the moon is so strong in this placement. So it is important to look at that and see like how much you're doing with other people, how much your boundaries are not really clear. The family stuff is even more deeper than just moon in the 12th in general, because it's the moon in its own sign in the 12th. So there's a lot of really, 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 really deep spiritual connections to your family that you have, or that you're building, and that you're healing. There's a lot of that. Lots of compassion, lots of maternal things in this way, and unseen maternal things as well. Whether it's your own mother, the actual mother is not allowed to be seen, or not allowed to be connected to in some way, shape, or form, or your own maternal ability is not really tapped into as easily. And that's true for the moon and the 12th in general. Like, it's almost like they're not seeing themselves as maternal in some ways. And you could see this more with like a moon, like Martian quality. Like I said earlier, with the moon in Aries and moon in Scorpio, there's a sense of like kind of rash, kind of not really wanting to care, but needing to care, and knowing that that's part of what needs to happen, right? Yeah, the moon in Aries and Scorpio is really, it's its own thing. But anywho, the moon in its own sign, like I said, it's very sensitive here. It's very powerful here, very strong here. And it has a quality of, like I said, protecting that 12th house area. So there's a lot of like angels behind you. There's a lot of support behind you while you do these things with the moon in the 12th. And in Cancer, the moon in the 12th in general has a lot of support from family ancestral lines as well. There's probably a deeper one for the moon in Cancer than there is other moons. Yeah. And then what else? Oh, moon in Jupiter ruled signs. So moon in Sag and moon in Pisces. So the moon in Sag obviously has more of a optimistic, flary vibe to it, because much like the moon in Aries and in Leo, there's a quality of just doing stuff that the moon does in fire. And when placing this in the 12th house, it can almost overly do things in some ways. It has belief systems that really need to be not outdated, but that need to be understood and comprehended and explored. There's a lot of really deep cultural roots, specifically for this one, and family cultural kind of indoctrinated kind of stuff. There's something there. There's some weird like spiritual like belief systems that you follow from your family that are really important to discern what is yours, what is not, what is true, what is not. Yeah, there's some interesting stuff there for sure, especially if you're a Gen Z with this one, with the moon and Sag and the 12th. There's definitely a deep need to really purify that family stuff. If you have the moon Sag and the 12th, like the family stuff is really intense, and breaking apart those cultural kind of toxicities essentially. And if it's, yeah, anywho, moon Sag Pluto people, there's a lot there. So yeah, there's a lot there. Now, yeah, break apart the belief systems for sure if you have moon Sag in the 12th with Pluto. I mean, moon Sag in the 12th in general wants you to do that anyway, but with Pluto it kind of forces that really deep. There's a lot of emotional abuse around. Yeah, there's some really intense stuff. So yeah, I don't know why I needed to say that, but if you have that placement, let me know, because there's a lot there that I feel needs to be unraveled and worked through. But anyway, other moon Jupiter signs. So we have moon in Pisces. Obviously, this is a video for you. So if you have this one, it's a doozy. If you have this placement in particular, there's a lot going on here. So it's all about doing stuff unseen, like hidden from you. The family stuff is even deeper than what I had said earlier with the moon Pisces. But being able to really connect to your own emotional center is really important. Creating your own emotional sense of peace. Really maybe coming from a family of addicts, coming from a family, and this is true for moon Pisces too, but coming from artists, coming from addicts, coming from stuff like that, your family origin is really sensitive. And there's maybe coming from a family of mystics as well, family of healers. There's a lot of qualities there that I think are really beautiful in a lot of ways. So yeah, do with that what you will. I mean, this whole video is pretty much about you if you have the moon Pisces in the 12th. So yeah, it's interesting with that one. So yeah, the family definitely becomes a lot deeper too, because once again, the 4th house goes into the 12th with this one. So yeah, there's a loss of family in some way. Or family connection. It's like connecting to all family, but not your own, in a way. True for moon in Aquarius as well too, which I guess we'll go to next, because we have the moon in Saturn. So moon in Aquarius and moon in Capricorn. These ones are going to have a lot harder time to connect to subtle energies. Moon Aquarius, I think, has probably, this one's strange. This one's very strange. Yeah, the moon in the 12th, this 12th house stuff, man, it's so like, it's so deep. like I said, it's so deep in ways that this 1 week series is not going to be able to do it justice. And this video, I know, is already an hour at this point. Like, just even talking about, like, the moon in Aquarius in the 12th has its own, like, really deep spiritual karmic story to it. And all of them do. Every single 12th house placement does. And that's why I think it's so... Whew, this week's going to be fun, yeah. It's a lot. But anywho, the moon in Capricorn and Aquarius in the 12th, there's a sense of moon Aquarius in the 12th, like I said earlier, of connecting to all of community that you can't see, having your family be not your family, but want to connect to all family at once. And there's a sense of creating community here that I think is really powerful, and artistic community, and knowing your friends, and if they help you, if they don't, how they help you. There's a sense of really fractured relationship with society. This is like very martyr energy, but it's almost like martyr energy where someone is propped up as a hero and then is taken down as a means of an example. It's very interesting. This one is very like I think about Britney Spears, but Britney Spears does not have moon Aquarius in the 12th. I know that much for sure. She has it in the 5th, which is very different. And I'm fairly confident that Billie Eilish doesn't have it in the 12th either. But my point being is that there's this quality of like being a healer for such a big part of society. Once you can figure out what that is, once you can figure out what you're identifying with, what group you are working towards changing, and what you're advocating for, and yeah, there's some really cool stuff here. But there's also, it could be also like this one. Okay, what this one feels like, and this, I don't think this is Paris Hilton. I'm gonna check that really quick, but I'm fairly confident that this is not Paris Hilton. I don't think Paris Hilton has an Aquarius moon. She might, but I doubt it. But the thing that I'm seeing, and this does make a lot of sense, is almost like the children refugees, or like refugees of children, communities of children, and kind of being able to advocate and be through your loss of family, you're able to become the something that you advocate for. So there's a sense of advocation here. She doesn't have her moon. She has a lot of Aquarius, but she doesn't have her moon in Aquarius in the 12th. My point is, and that's what I thought, I figured she was a Sagittarising, but there's something about like the Paris Hilton story, which I don't know if many of you know about it, but I'm sure you do, where there was like a child like essentially like child abuse sort of like camp that has been going on for a long time, that she was a part of, that they made a whole documentary, I believe, on it and spoke about it. So there's a sense of that. Like, that is like a really good example of the moon Aquarius in the 12th, where it's like you lose your connection with society, with your family, but by doing so you become a part of a movement in some ways. It's really interesting, very, very unique. So yeah, but then finally the moon in Capricorn. Obviously this is not where the moon really likes to be in the 12th, but there is a quality with this one of over time working in spaces of solitude, and working on understanding your solitude, understanding the importance of solitude and of care of yourself, just like the moon does in Pisces, like knowing how to take care of yourself, knowing how to regulate your emotions, and knowing how to feel your emotions, I think is a really big part of this. I think there's a sense of like a dam that is just waiting to break with the moon Capricorn in the 12th, and allowing yourself to feel them, and in some way look at your emotions as a job. That's going to really help moon Capricorn individuals in general. Obviously go watch the moon Capricorn video. That's going to help you a lot more than just this little tidbit here, but look at your emotions as something that need to be worked on, and everyone does need to work on those, but yours become really solid the more you work on them, and the more you work on emotional boundaries are really important too. Emotional boundaries might be actually deterring you a lot more as a moon Capricorn on the 12th than they are helping you. They might be hindering you from actually feeling your feelings as a moon Capricorn on the 12th. As a self-protective measure. There's some very interesting psychological things that might be hidden from you as a moon 12th house Capricorn that you're not able to really see. And moon Aquarius as well, there's an aspect of that it's like not really allowed to connect to those feelings at all times, and then you meet someone or someone brings something out of you and you're like, oh my gosh, that's what that is, and stuff resurfaces, right? There's so much beauty in the 12th house, and I wish, like I said, I wish I could do so much more with this particular series, with this particular video. And for those of you that are still watching, love you. Thank you. Obviously, thank you. I love doing this. But there's so much nuance, there's so much depth to this particular week. And I try to give as much time and presence as I can to it because there's so much here. And I really hope that this helps some moon 12th house people, because there's a lot that you guys have within you that is untapped in some ways and is meant to be seen, and meant to be felt and meant to be experienced. And the moon in the 12th is it's such a gift. Like I said with moon in Pisces, but it's how you use that gift, how you use your sensitivity as your gift, because that's what that is. Your emotions are what you are going to dissolve into, but in so doing that, you are also going to be able to help others release their worries and their concerns in that way. Be very careful with your mental health as well. Be very, very, very careful. And be very aware of it, I guess, is the thing. And you're going to have to be over time. Everyone has to be, but moon 12th housers, they can get swept up in so many different things so quickly. So, yeah, such a gift. Such a gift. And I love this, and I hope this video will help you. I hope this video was a gift as well. Because I love this. I love what I do. I love being able to help people with this. This is part of what I live to do in some ways. It makes me so happy. It gives me so much joy just to be able to give people some guidance and help them and allow the universe to speak through me in this language that I know quite well. And I appreciate you for being here. Obviously, if you like this video, please like, comment, share, subscribe, all those things. And of course, down below, leave a comment. I would love to hear about your story as a moon 12th house, or what it's been like. Obviously, how this video has resonated too. I want to hear how this video resonated, because this is such a unique one, as of all the 12th house ones are, but this one is very, feels very on the nose, very connected while I'm doing this, which is not uncommon, but for this particular one, it was a little bit more intense because of the moon in the 12th. So yeah, I think there's a lot here. I hope this helped. Obviously, if you guys are interested in anything with me, feel free to book down below. And of course, look at that playlist. That's a playlist going to really, really help you in so many different ways. And also, kind of additional note to that, look to your moon's ruler as well for other ideas of what else is going on with the chart. I mentioned this in like all the videos I've done thus far, so you can definitely see that in those moon videos. If you're watching this as a moon 12th houser, watch those moon videos first as well, and then kind of just go within the playlist and see what else is out there. And I hope this can help you. I hope this can help anybody. And I make these videos and because I love it, and I want to create this out there so people can have it and give it to the collective. So I hope this helps someone, anyone, everyone, right, in some way, shape, or form. So thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being a part of this. And I'll see you guys in the next one where we talk about what Mars does in Pisces and in the 12th house. So thank you. Talk to you guys soon.